Kathleen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Only thing is that I hurt my back though. I don't know. I was teaching. I teach now on the computer now, and I think I was hunched over, and I woke up and now I can't really walk that well.
I know. Have you tried some yoga poses in the morning?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
do
tried
that.
all types of things. I've
Okay.
tried yoga poses. I've done walking around. I don't know, but I'm gonna get better. It's all good. Kathleen, this is about you. So would love to introduce you to our podcast, episode 5. You know that this is a big podcast, Kathleen, because we're at 93 listens, which means that this will break the 100.
Okay.
Uh, it's huge. It's huge. So thank you for breaking us into triple digits. Tell the podcast who you are and your story.
Okay. So I am Kathleen Elie. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. Catholic school background from kindergarten through high school. I went to state school, SUNY Stony Brook, and Baruch for a master's degree. Um, And I am currently the chief financial officer of a small nonprofit based in New York City.
Hmm. And
Um,
sorry, go
mhm.
ahead.
Oh, you can go. You can ask.
That nonprofit is. Do you want to share that nonprofit? Because I know with the nonprofit, do you want to share that with our public?
Sure, I might. Yeah, Urban Arts Partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does the Urban Arts Partnership do?
So we work with New York City public schools, mostly high school and elementary school, and we provide arts integration. So we work with teachers and students and provide um, services like Story Studio, for instance. So we work with English language learners, students with disabilities, teachers that teach students with disabilities, and our like landmark program is SIA, School of Interactive Arts, that works with high school students and teaches them how to game and code. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a partnership with NYU, um, and we partner with, I believe it's 2 high schools in the city right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we teach them gaming and coding.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And before I know Kathleen because you in that role at Prepper Prep, you were what? You also
Yes.
work in finance too.
Yep. I was the assistant director of finance.
Yeah. So why finance? Why is that the area you decided to dedicate your life to?
Uh, I'll tell you the story. So I really wanted to dedicate my life to helping people in the form of working in the medical field. So growing up, I wanted to become a physical therapist. I went to school. I majored in sociology. I took all of the science courses except for organic chemistry. Once we got to organic chemistry, it was a stop because at Stony Brook, almost no one passed it. It was a struggle. So my grandmother at the time was like, she didn't want me to become a physical therapist because they worked too hard. She's like, you
Mm-hmm.
should do something else, like business or something. I was like, oh, I don't really want to. Um, but I did. So I like minored in business administration, majored in sociology, came out when I graduated, job market was real slim, but I got a job as a finance assistant and kind of worked my way up, like through these small nonprofits, worked at a think tank, then worked at my first education nonprofit, I think back in 2004. And that was a charter management organization. And then from there, just kind of like went into the direction of working with education based organizations within finance because I still had the passion and desire to help people. But this was now what I did, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
what I knew how to do. This was what I was good at. So this is what I did. So here I am. So I've worked at charter schools. Um, I've worked as a consultant for 9 years, mostly doing finance consulting for charter schools as well.
Did you ever feel a pull to go into corporate America? I mean, you're in finance. I would feel like there'll be a moment where you're like, screw this, I'm going to go to work for Goldman Sachs.
Nope.
Why not? Like, that never was a pull for you?
It never was and I have so many friends who work for Goldman Sachs or UBS or Morgan Stanley, and it's just I hear about the things that they go through as people of color
Mm,
and the struggles, and I don't think that I could take that. I wouldn't want to do that. Like I even when you work in nonprofits or you work in small, you know, corporations that I've worked in, you
mhm.
still feel the microaggressions. You still feel sometimes you don't feel like you're safe being a person of color, but I don't know if it's as bad as if you were to go into the corporate world.
Really? And how do you deal with that? Um, I mean, as a Black woman working in not only finance but small nonprofit organizations, how do you deal with those microaggressions or even macroaggressions?
You just have to always be the best at what you do. And always
Mm,
like I feel like I'm constantly fighting. Like nothing could be wrong. Everything has to be perfect. I have to work a little extra harder, to make sure that everything's right.
I
And
imagine that. Go ahead.
what's funny is in my last company that I worked at, it was of a medium-sized company. It was a B corporation. It wasn't a nonprofit.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but we were mostly people of color. So we were 95% of the organization were people of color. And we went out and we were like the best organization serving these charter schools in finance, right? But we had to work extra hard because we were mostly people of color. We had to walk into these schools and we really had to know what we were doing, what we were talking about at all times, because we had to work with school leaders and board members who, might look at you and say like, well, can you really do this job?
Hmm. I imagine that gets tiring.
Yeah, it did. That's why I left. Not because I didn't love the company, but because I was tired.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you feel the
yeah.
pressure to be the best where you are now?
Um, yes. So it's a really small company. I am basically a one-man show, one-woman
Mm,
show. I work, like it's like a team of 4 people. I report to the COO, and there's always a strive for perfection. Always.
hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough. I feel like um, I don't know if a lot of our non-black colleagues understand that pressure. Maybe they do. I don't know, but it just seems to be something that is part and parcel of being a person of color in these spaces.
Yeah.
Like trying our hardest to be like perfect because of any flaw will be magnified and then we're out of there. I don't know. It's a weird place
If
to be in.
it feels that way at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, do you have opportunities to interface with young people? Do you feel yourself, even you're working in education, do you feel like you are far removed from the students, or do you feel like you have time to interface with the young people that you're impacting?
Um, I would say right now it's like 50-50 because the
Hmm.
students, they do come to our office because they learn there. Like we have classroom setting there.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't have to interact with them. I can see them. I see them in the lunchroom. I say hi.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I will go and participate and watch what they're doing. Um,
Hmm.
but it's not like how it was when I actually worked in the school. Like
Hmm.
I don't feel like I'm touching the child, like
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't I don't know, I'm sure it does, but I don't feel like what I do right now in finance actually has like this big impact on youth.
Really?
Yeah, like I
Speak.
know that like the finance department kind of like has to keep the engine going, like
Hmm. Hmm.
if there's no money, there's no organization. Um
Exactly.
but I don't know how we impact. It's a very indirect way that we impact children,
Hmm.
you
I would
know?
argue that is the most direct. I feel like we can't exist. And I think we feel that now with the coronavirus at my school, for example. Like if they were not financially responsible, we're all screwed. Like, I would imagine that you have a incredible direct role. Do you find do you see yourself um, engaging in opportunities to be more, I guess, in the face of young people? You feel like, yeah, I'm just curious what your plans are for the future.
Well, um, I did start my own LLC.
Okay.
Um, it's called Business Synergy Partners, and what we do is still finance,
Hmm.
but it's working with small entrepreneurial organizations like yourself, right?
Mm,
So my clients are mostly people of color who are one man shows or have or
mm,
two or three people organizations that are trying their best to help youth in some way, shape, or form. Like one of my main client actually teaches film in a high school in Harlem to young students. Real dope. Like love it. You know, um, and I hope to actually take this engine and teach young people financial literacy. So it's real.
that's one of my questions.
Yeah, it's real. It's very new. It's only a few months old. So, and it's right now a side gig that I would
Hmm.
hopefully take, to be my main job in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay. All right. I want to make sure I provide value for my listeners because I did speaking of numbers, I looked at the data. Let me ask you who do you think age demographic is the number one listeners of this podcast? What do you think?
I would say probably 18 to 35.
It is 18 to 25, which is super interesting. And so there are people in college trying to figure things out. So I'm curious. I want to get into your business, but I want to look at your current job just a minute.
Mm.
And what would be, I imagine there is a listener out there in college who wants to get into finance, but is not um, excited about corporate America. What what are like two things you think they should be researching or potential internships that they should go after to see if they can do what you're doing right now?
Well, definitely they can go to their career services and look at their job boards there, right? Because a lot of nonprofits look for interns, especially in the business office. I mean, probably not right now, but
Hmm. Hmm.
normally at schools, at local schools. So if you're looking at New York City schools, whether it's like Baruch or NYU or Columbia, wherever, like go to your career services,
Hmm.
or go online, go on Idealist, go on Indeed,
Mm,
or if you have a certain nonprofit interest like healthcare services or homeless services or arts integration, Google that and find it and just shoot an email to someone,
mhm,
and say, I want to volunteer my services, or I'd like to come and shadow you. I'm
right.
sure that people will be open to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I can imagine there's a lot of people who want to manage money but don't want to do that big corporate thing, um,
Yeah.
and feel like, how do you even start that? Financial literacy, Black community means what to you? That intersection means what to you?
There's like this huge push, this huge fire push right now, right? um, to be financially independent and retire early. Um, I'd love to do that. I don't know if I can, even though it's one of my goals. But I think it's more to like know what's going on, know how to leverage your resources, right? Leverage money, not go into debt. I mean, college kids going to college, and I don't know if it's the same way now as it was when I was in college, but it was so easy to get a credit card and so easy to max it out. And like not know how you're gonna pay for it.
Hmm.
But it's as simple as like, I know how to balance my checkbook. I know how to budget month to month. I know that I should save at least 10% of my income each time I get a paycheck,
Mm.
before you pay your bills. I know that paying the minimum balance is not the move, right? Like you need to pay more than that. You need to try to pay your bills in full, and you need to like keep, your credit usage at least 20%, like make it like 20% of your total credit, because if you don't, then your credit drops.
Hmm.
So it's like knowing the value of credit, knowing the value of money, knowing the value of investments, because
Hmm.
to be rich and successful doesn't always mean to have cash in your pocket, right? It could take up so many different forms, but
Hmm.
yeah.
What about stocks? So how okay, those apps Stash and Robinhood? Are you supportive of those?
Yes, I have. So I use Robinhood. I love Robinhood because I could shoot you a text message, you open up an account, we both go to free stock,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Um, and I'm like not that literate on stocks, but I'm starting to like really like practice. So Robinhood, Charles Schwab, Stockpile is great for fractional. So I
Hmm.
just started using Stockpile. When you have a little bit of money and you want to buy Google stock and you just have $25, you can get, a percentage of a share for $25. And it
Mm.
works. Like, and so you just have to do your homework.
Hmm.
Somebody that I know who works in one of these big firms said buy the market. I was like, what does that mean? They're like, ETFs and mutual funds buy the market. And so now I'm starting to understand what that means and how
Hmm.
to look at, like my stock portfolio, which isn't great, it's a small one, but how to look at it and how to figure out how to leverage it um, the best way I can to make the most profit.
Right. That stockpile.
Stockpile.
Interesting. I've never heard
Yep.
of that stockpile.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who is 33, has fell into the trap of getting a credit card in college, racked up debt. Um, they have, I don't know, $20,000 in debt currently. What will be their first two steps to get out of that debt?
Well, see if they can consolidate the debt, right? Um, or roll at least a part of it into a zero interest credit card, right? And
Hmm.
this is something that I did. So I'll give you my story. So I didn't accumulate $20,000 worth of debt, but it was a considerable amount of debt, especially when I moved out on my own. But luckily I had good credit, right? So that's number one. You need to make sure you have good credit. So even if you can't afford to pay more than that minimum balance, at least you're paying that. You're not defaulting. Um, and so I was able to take some of my money and pile it onto a zero interest credit card. And it gives you zero interest for say 12 months or 18 months. So then I figure out, what do I need to do? How much do I need to pay down per month so that I'm down to zero balance after that interest rate has expired? And now I have to figure out now how to pay that money if I don't have it. Like it depends on the person's, employment. That's where you start to hustle. So I started to hustle. I became a real estate agent. I started preparing taxes. I
Hmm.
started just creating multiple streams of income. And the money wasn't always readily available, but it was always there when I needed it.
Hmm.
So I would close that real estate deal just in time, you know, where I'd have to pay down that credit card. And
Yeah.
then once you pay it down, don't fall back into the hole.
Hmm. Hmm. Let's talk about your hustle. You just mentioned it. You have a business. What's the name of your business again?
Business Synergy Partners LLC.
Business Synergy Partners LLC.
Mhm.
You are dabbling in real estate, or you're like really into real estate.
So I've been practicing real estate on a part-time basis since 2007.
Wow.
My niche is single family. I mostly work with first-time home buyers, um, or elderly people looking to downsize.
Hmm.
So it's not like this big money maker for me. It's really a way for me to help people, right? Because
Okay.
people choose me to be their realtor because they're like, oh, this woman is so sweet, so nice. I can trust her, and she's gonna help me.
Hmm.
And it's true. Like I have first time home buyers where I go out with them and they'd be calling me asking me about what paint color they should paint their kitchens.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
done that, and I focus like mostly in Queens and Long Island.
Hmm.
Um, I own, aside from my apartment in Queens that I still live in,
But
I
it's the
still
same.
live there, the same place. I own a house in Pennsylvania that I'm at now, and a house in Florida. And so those, my husband and I purchased in 2018, and just recently, right before coronavirus, in February 2020, and we are doing short-term rentals with those.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we cannot short-term rental right now because
Right.
of coronavirus, but
Right.
the house in Pennsylvania has been in short-term rental since last June and has been really lucrative. And I'm going to imagine that once Disney opens back up, the house in Orlando is going to be just the same. And they're turnkey homes. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
Chidi, like buying outside of New York is so it's just so much less stressful and less expensive than buying in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bought a home in Philadelphia. It was the easiest thing.
Yeah.
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 Super. So you're legitimately hustling.
Yeah.
You say that so nonchalantly. Yep. Like where did this come from? Where did this hustle spirit come from?
I don't know. It started, and I think about this all the time because I want there to be a time where I don't hustle. But it
Mm,
started back in 2006. And this I think was before I started working at Prep.
mm,
But in 2006, it's just like I knew that I wanted to leave home, get a place of my own, and just like start growing as an adult. Um, and I just had to hustle. Like, like when you're young and you have these jobs that don't pay you that much, you have to figure out how to get paid.
mm-hmm.
And I had so much time on my hands, so I just did it. And now I don't know how to stop. So like that's the problem, right? Like now you get older and you're trying to figure out how to stop. Um, and my husband's a hustler too, so it's like two hustlers with multiple jobs, and it's just like how do you stop and rest? Like this has really like stopped us, this pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
like it slowed us down,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it still feels busy, but it's.
When do you find the time? A lot of people want to hustle like you are, but they're
Mhm.
like, I have a full-time job, I have a family, I just don't have time to do any of that. When do you find the time? Like when do you do this extra stuff?
I wake up really early in the morning,
What time?
um, so most times I wake up around 5:30.
Mm,
Self-care is also important, right? So you have to work out, you have to exercise, meditate, do whatever you do for self-care. So I wake up early. Um, I try to start my day by like 7:30. So before we got quarantined, I'd wake up, I'd go to the gym, come home, go to work, and then I'd come home, and probably like 3 to 4 times a week, I would take 1 to 3 hours in the evening to do the other work, right? And on the weekends, Sunday evenings, I kind of like block that time out.
okay.
If it's real estate and I'm working with a client, then that is mostly Saturday and Sundays during the day. And that'll be like half my day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's really trying to put together a schedule for yourself. Um,
Yeah.
and incorporating, your children, your partner, or whatever. Like, if you have kids and they're old enough to help you, you know,
Done the
have
work.
them help you. Yeah. Like, I don't have any children yet, but I have a friend who's also sort of a business partner who has like 4 kids, and she puts them to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. Switching gears, you're a Zeta, correct?
Yes, I am.
Correct. And
Yesterday was my 19th
I
anniversary.
know.
Yep.
I know this because I figured this out in my research.
Okay.
And was it 19 years?
19 years.
Wow. Why was that important for you to pledge? And why is that? Yeah, yeah. Why was that important for you to pledge?
So I only pledged because everybody thought that I couldn't pledge.
Mm.
Like, in high school, like, my friends were like, "Oh, you could never like make it through a process." Not in high school, in college, you could never make it through a process. And I'm like, nah, like, I don't like when people tell me I can't do something. Why I chose Zeta was because I knew a lot of the women, and they were just so real, so down to earth, like the nicest women ever. One of my well, like one of my best friends is a Zeta, and I met her before I became a Zeta, and she was going to college in Maryland at the time, and I went down there for a weekend, and like her and all of my sorors who weren't my sorors at the time were just so welcoming, and they were so nice. I didn't feel like I was left out, you know, and so that was like my answer right there, and
And that's it.
and that's it.
That's awesome. In
Yeah,
19 years, do you guys
19.
still hang out? Is there like a brunch you guys do every year?
Um, so I am not currently in like a chapter, because like
Hmm.
it's international and there's different chapters. So
Right.
I'm not currently in a chapter because that's one thing that I kind of like had to like give up for time constraints, because it is a large time commitment if you're active.
Hmm.
um but I still like try to volunteer when I can. I still hang out. A lot of my closest friends are Zetas. So it's not like just one thing that you do annually. Like, I'm in a prayer group right now, and at least 4 of us are Zetas.
Hmm.
I did a Zoom party a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, one of my sorors lives in California, the other one in Maryland, another one in Chicago, and another one here in New York. So we had like a little Zoom party. So we
Hmm.
do our best to keep in touch
Yeah.
often.
So we have, you're in sorority. That's a part of your life. God is also a part of your life. Spirituality. We've been talking a lot about your hustle, talking about your interest to be an educator of financial literacy. I imagine God is like the omnipresent um, presence in all of this. So I'm curious, how does spirituality inform all of these things that you're doing?
It informs everything, right? I kind of incorporate prayer in everything I do. I don't think that I would have anything that I have right now if it wasn't for prayer and faith, and believing even when um, what you might want you don't get, you have to always continue to believe, right? So when I would go through like hard, like I had some rough patches in my life, and I'd always ask God for some things. And then I realized once I got through those rough patches that you don't always get what you ask for, but God always gives you what you need. Always, like no matter what. So I got married, and I said to my husband, we need to move into a bigger place. Like, and I mean, when I tell you it was like an everyday conversation, like I was borderline pestering him, like, we need to move out this apartment. I've been here for too long. Like, we need more space. And he was just like, you need to be patient. You need to pray. You need to ask God for what you want. and don't worry about things so much. And like what, 2 years later, I have two homes. I still
Mm-hmm.
live in that apartment, but now I have two income producing homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, I didn't, so I did get what I asked for, but I got it in a different way. It doesn't always look, it doesn't always look like how you think it's going to look. And you have to be open to that and accepting that,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Your prayer circle, how often do they meet?
Um, Wednesdays and Saturdays, so twice a week.
Mm. Yeah, I'm trying to get into something like that too. I feel like I need I need a community uh, of study that I feel like I need more of in my life. Um, have you had challenges in your faith? Do you feel like I'm curious about your faith journey, and
Mhm.
have there been some peaks and valleys?
Yeah. Um, I think it's always a struggle, like every day, like
Hmm.
people are dying all around us. You know, I
Yeah.
I know people who have passed away like recently, whether it's coronavirus or whatever else. And so you always question like why, you know, why this person if they're so young or, you know, my grandmother who I was really close to, she passed away like years ago. But I think that was a struggle for me.
Hmm.
Um, but like my mother always says, you never question God. You're like, no matter what happens, you never question God. So I just try not to, you know. So I don't think I ever stopped believing. I just, you know, just would take anything that came and just knew like deep down inside, like things will get better or there's a reason why this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Um, Transitioning. This is a very heavy subject. This is the best time to go into our segment. Do you know you listen to
But
all our podcasts?
yes, deep dives.
Yes. Yes. Deep dive. I feel like I need like a sound. I don't know. You hear that?
I can
Did
hear
you hear
it.
that?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Deep dive. It's funny you can hear that. Anyway, deep dive. All right. So for people who have not heard the podcast before, first of all, shame on you. How dare you? And secondly, deep dives is when I ask. I teach a class called the New Community Project, and the idea is that getting students to investigate human beings like their text. So how we would read Macbeth is the same way we should read each other. And so with deep dives, I ask our guests some questions that get them to think of themselves as text. So I've done my research on Kathleen, and I've known Kathleen for a long time now, so it's kind of cheating. But I have four big questions for you.
Okay.
You ready for this? And the fifth, you get an opportunity to ask me a really hard question too. All right. How do you handle your fear and anxiety?
Uh, I don't know if I handle it well, to be quite honest.
Mm,
Um, I think I am naturally an anxious person. So like I told you,
really?
like even like this podcast, I was like, yes, Chitty, oh my God, it's such an honor and a privilege. But I was so anxious, like, what am I gonna say? What is he gonna ask?
You're doing an
um
excellent job.
thanks. Um I've learned how to take deep breaths and know that whatever I'm feeling, someone else has felt the same way or worse, right? Like I can make a fool out of myself, but at least I tried.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's how I handle my anxiety.
Hmm.
Fear in my day to day life, I don't think that I'm actually that fearful of much, right? What I think I'm fearful of the most is myself.
Hmm.
And I noticed that just in everything, like in trying to start a business, in changing jobs. I don't know that I believe in myself the way others believe in me. And I think that causes either a fear of failure or a fear of success, right? So I'm afraid to fail because then I'll disappoint not only myself but others. And it's like a small part of me is almost afraid to be successful because then it's just like now I have to like meet this expectation all the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with the fear part, right? Like it's not like I'm not afraid of, little small things. It's just I'm afraid of the thought process and how I react to like my journey.
But I imagine a listener is listening to this is like, you just told me you have 8 jobs and you have 18 homes, and how are you scared of success? How do you respond to that person? I'm sure there's someone that's like, seriously, Kathleen,
Because
you're doing more than I ever have done in my life.
and you see, but then I don't see it as successful though. I don't see it as success. I don't think I've reached my pinnacle of success yet, right? I think for me success is when I don't fear it. I don't feel failure, and I could wake up every morning knowing that I can walk into a job that I love and that I'm helping people,
Mm.
right? So like I have all these things. I'll tell you a story. Like this happened, it was January. It was a cold day and I was at the bus stop waiting for the bus to go home. And I just had this epiphany and I was like, if I lost everything tomorrow, it wouldn't bother me. I'd pick up and I'd probably move someplace and just start a new life. And I had never felt that way before because
Mm.
I had always tied success and stability to things, right? To like a home and a car and a job. But that also kind of like traps you or me, right? Like it's also like
Correct.
I
Correct.
have all these responsibilities and I've always had responsibilities growing up, like either, taking care of my grandparents or having an apartment. Like it's never been like, oh, I'm gonna just get up and move to this state or that state.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I have all these responsibilities, so I have to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's just I guess you could say that I'm successful in my own right, but those things don't really mean much,
Mm.
you know?
Interesting. I was just talking about this to someone that I I'm so scared of a lot of. I think if people were to look at me without knowing me, they would think, "Oh, he's fearless. He just does it." Like my wife always says that. Like I have an idea and I just do it. Like I don't. There's no real process. It's like I want to do this thing. I write it on a piece of paper and I go, "All right." But even in that process, I'm scared. Like the idea of starting a company with my name on it terrifies me. But it does. For example, this is a, and I should have filmed this so I can put it on something on YouTube or something. So I'm starting a new workshop this summer to bring Newcom to all across the country. Cause I think it can really have a positive impact on communities, and that's putting it lightly. Um, and so I had the idea that I was going to do this workshop. It's going to be 5 days. It's going to cost $1,000, and like that's fair. So I'm like, all right, we'll do this thing. And I hovered around the push to press the button. Like I couldn't press the button to be like, yes, me, like I have the audacity to say that something I created is worth 1,000 of your dollars. Like there's something about that terrified me. But when I pushed the button, I still was scared. Like I still was scared, but I was like, I have to keep going. And I feel like my theory is, I was just telling my wife this, that success to me is that I am afraid, but I do it anyway.
Mhm.
Some people get afraid and they stop. Me, I get afraid, I stop, and I will still do it, even though it terrifies me every single day. And the hope is that it terrifies me a little bit less each time, but I just got to push through it. And so I guess to me, success isn't the absence of fear. Success to me is, what do you do when you experience fear?
Push through
You
it.
know, you know what I'm saying? Some people just
Hmm.
fold.
Yep.
They fold. They're scared. Like, see, this is why I can't do this thing. Me, I'm like, oh, I'm scared. It's scary. I'm scared because this is scary. So it must mean I'm doing something big. So
Right.
therefore, I got to keep doing it. It's interesting. Um, all right. That was a big number one. All right. We have others to go here. Um, what is an issue that no one is talking about?
Right now,
Yep.
I don't even know if I should say this out loud.
Uh-oh.
Um,
Controversial.
um, censorship. So I noticed this in the last few weeks, especially with this whole pandemic. And I'm like seeing little things, but and then maybe it's just me, but like YouTube, Facebook, all these platforms that weren't censoring people's material are now censoring and scanning.
Mm,
And I just wonder why. And I don't think anybody will ever talk about this because, it can get you in trouble, right?
yeah.
But it's just it's like that's just a question. It's just like why? Like why can't we talk about how, vitamin C is good for the immune system or, you
Mm,
know, you know what I'm saying? Like it just leads me to, wonder what's really going on in this world,
mm,
what we're moving towards um,
mm.
as a community, um, as a planet. It's scary.
Really?
Like
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like we're in a movie. Like I
Yes.
feel like we're like in Endgame and Thanos is playing with our lives.
Yes.
you know and I don't think anybody's talking about that. Like we're talking about vaccines and we're talking about treatment and we're talking about this and we're talking about that, but we don't really but nobody notices, like nobody wonders, like, all right, vaccines, I'm not against them. I'm actually like I'm pro vaccinations, but to an extent, like
Mm,
what's in them, how
mm-hmm,
transparent is that, you
mm-hmm,
know um and just like what can we, like, why is it that every commercial is Pizza Hut, Burger King, and
mm-hmm.
Coca-Cola, and then the other commercials are medications that cause 40 side effects, right? Like why can't commercials be about health and self-care that doesn't cost you $1,000 at the pharmacy,
Yeah.
you know and I don't feel like people really talk about those things or really connect, like that's really like what's going on.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. It's always those commercials that are about fighting depression, and the side effects is suicidal thoughts. You're just like,
Like that
uh,
shouldn't be happening.
uh. I don't know. And it's always like people doing dance numbers. Like,
hmm
you're like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's true. I think to 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 to, to add on to what you're saying, I think we're we're living in an interesting time because people are more cognizant and aware of people's sensitivities now. So like we want to be mindful of everyone's narrative, and so in so doing, we're very careful with our speech, but which is great. I think, but the challenge is that it sometimes dissuades us from getting at the heart of issues because we're so worried about um, offending. So we don't get to the thing, like what actually is happening. And so I think we're in an important time in our culture where we're super mindful of things. I think the next step is saying, okay, now let's really get down into the dirt and talk about what's actually happening in the world. And it's going to be messy and it's not going to be great and it may hurt a lot of us, but we got to get into the dirt. We're not there yet, I don't think. I think we are like stunned into silence sometimes. What are you hopeful for?
In my life,
Yeah.
well, I look forward to the future. Like I'm hoping and I have faith that the future is bright, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, that the plans that I have actually come into fruition, that that my business grows,
Mm-hmm.
that I can go from being an employee to a boss, um, that my properties are lucrative and that I can help people in what I do, right? So
Yeah.
it's not all about um me just accumulating wealth, but it's inspiring others to do the same and showing them how to
Mm-hmm.
do it. Like with the home purchasing, I have two friends that after we did this, they went out and they bought their own homes, their
Nice.
second homes that they could actually go and now
Nice.
do short term rentals with, you know.
Where? And not in New York.
One of them is upstate, like Hunter
Okay.
Mountain area,
Okay.
at a condo, and like that area is, I've never been up there because I don't ski, but it's a big ski area. Over
Mm-hmm.
here too in the Poconos is a big ski area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. How far away do you think you're from becoming your own boss?
I said 2 to 3 years earlier. Um, I'm giving myself 5 years. So I'm strategic about it, smart about it, and I'm not jumping the gun. Like I want to take a leap of faith, but I also have bills to pay.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, now you have the opportunity to ask me a deep dive question. I'll try my best to answer it.
Okay. Wow, Chitty, I've known you for a really long, long time.
That's correct.
And
Since I got out of college, I was 21 years old.
yeah, and you were always so exciting and determined.
Mm-hmm.
And had no doubt that you would get to where you are right now,
Thank
right?
you.
Um, what made you start the Newcom project,
Mm-hmm.
and what is your main goal when you like take it national? Like, what do you want to see it become?
That's a good question. What made me started? I'll give you the abridged version. Basically, I was telling somebody else this yesterday. I gave them the long version, but basically, I stumbled into education. I wanted to be a banker. I went to the interview. They were like, "You're definitely a teacher." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." They're like, "Yes, you are." I was like, "No, I'm not." They're like, "Yes, you are." And then they were right. I went and became a teacher. And but I was bored. I just thought there was more that I could do. I felt there was more in my heart than just between two independent clauses, you put an and in the comma. Like nothing wrong with this. I don't want to offend, but there's just something about that felt like I could do more than this. I could create something. And I was down. I was very depressed that I felt that I was not living up to my talent. Um, And I called one of my friends, uh, Levy, Levy Brooks, shout out to him. And I called him and I was like, I pretty much begged him. I was like, he works for Goldman Sachs. And I was like, I whatever it takes for me to work at Goldman, I will do it. I don't want to teach anymore. It's not for me. I just feel like I can do more of my life. I want to be successful like you, like whatever it is. Please, I will intern over you and under you. Whatever you want me to do, I will do it. And he told me, Chitty, it's funny because I look at your life. I want to be more like you. And I'm like, what? Like my life is whatever. And he said, there's no one I know that should be a teacher more than you. But he told me, you clearly need to think about how to make that job your own. You have to think about what can you create, what structures can you implement that is Chidios Lucas. And I think that's how you're going to be happy because you have to be in that space, but now you have to do something that's yours. And so I said, okay. So fast forward, the idea of Newcom came to me in a dream. And basically, the dream was a bunch of teenagers wearing suits, quoting Toni Morrison to an audience of Congress people. It's a weird dream. But when I woke up, I was like, that's it. The idea needs to be bridging the gap between traditional education and what's actually happening in the world. We keep talking about education prepares you for the world, but I thought these teenagers can have an impact right now because in the classroom, we're every day we're talking about power, we're talking about race, we're talking about gender, we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about all of these important human issues that once you get older, it becomes harder to have those conversations. And we're doing it every single day. So I thought, what if we were to partner the class with a nonprofit organization? What if we read books that were tailor made around that nonprofit organization? What if the project was not to write an essay, but it was to design a project that can help with marketing, that can help with programming, that can help with to teach strategic development going further and really getting them to think in a business way, but using literature as the backbone. So that became the idea. I pitched it to the school. They thought I was crazy. They said, hey, that sounds all crazy, but just try it out and see what happens. And it became very successful. In the first 2 years, kids were signing up a lot. We did a lot of great things for the Philadelphia community. I moved to New York. I brought to Horace Mann, and it's been doing well there too. And I started to, again, with fear, I thought it was important for me to share this work with other people. So I hated the idea of going to these conferences and sharing my work, but I said, I have to do it. I have to share what I'm doing. So I started to go to conferences, like just started to like sign up and say, hey, propose a workshop like, hey, I started this crazy class where we compare literature with nonprofits, da, 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 da. And I would get approved every single time. I've not to, this doesn't sound like a brag, but I've never not gotten into a conference to present. Never. I've always gotten it. So I was like, oh my God, there's a audience for this. And the thing that where the company began is I'm presenting and I'm done and everyone's clapping in this like raucous way. But still, I think of the program as so it's good, but I never thought of it as like earth shattering. Maybe I was selling myself short, but I was like, oh, whatever. So at the end of the conference, I said, hey, a little notebook. It's a true story. I brought like a little ass notebook, and I was like, hey, if you're interested to bring Newcom to your school, just, sign your name here. I'll get back to you. And I turned my back to gather my bag. I was like gathering all of my materials from the workshop, just putting in my book bag. And Kathleen, I'll never forget this until the day that I die. I'll never forget this. I turned around back to the audience. There was a line
Wow.
out the door.
Wow.
They're waiting. They're like waiting with their pins. and then some people will cut the line and be like, "I'm so sorry. Can you give me your information?" And people will be like, "Get back in line." This is a true story. And I wanted to cry. I was like, I couldn't believe that something in my brain people want. And it was an eye-opening moment for me. And then some woman told me, she's like, "Listen, Chitty, I don't know you, you don't know me, but you have to start a company, and this has to be a business, because if you don't do it, people are gonna take your ideas." And she was like, "You gotta do it today." And that's what I did. So the company began, and what I want from it, to answer the second part of your question, is I want this course to be in every school, public, private, charter in the country. I think that it is the proper um, program to end out a high school experience, because it shows that the education that we've done for the past whatever years is not just to prepare you for college. That's great. We're happy you're going off to your nice school. But I think what I want every school to realize is that the work that we do every single day can actually impact the community that you are sitting on right now. And that to only say that our education is preparing people for college is selling this short.
Right.
So it sells the whole education experience short. We should demand more from schools. We should be educating young people that this education is a liberating weapon. And I think that that needs to be in every school. And so I think Newcom is the vessel for it to happen. And I want to see it grow. I want to see, I have other ideas. I have so many ideas that I want to impart onto the education system that I think will make them better. And so Newcom is just step one. And then once, we start flooding the market with Newcom, I have, other things.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully this company will be, it sounds ambitious, but I want the company to be, when you think of education, when you think about innovation, when you think about social impact on the high school, middle school level, maybe even collegiate level, you think, oh yeah, the Oscar company. That's the company that's trying to bring education to the next century. Um, it's ambitious, but I believe in it. I believe that we can do it. But that's my macro goal. Every single day, I just try to work in these very small ways to get there. And so right now is, all right, I'm going to hold online classes with teachers, and that's what it looks like right now. And I'm going to be patient. I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to hustle. I'm a dean at one of the best schools in the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a lot of work, a lot of
Yeah.
work, it is massive. But I will work on this at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I will. God believe it.
I believe in you. Yeah. I know
Thank
you'll
you.
I know you'll make it happen too.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And it'd be cool to document this whole experience. I want, these podcasts is, 20 years from now, we can play this back of when you are like CEO of Kathleen Elie, like company. And we had this moment where you're talking about, yeah, like I want to do this thing in 5 years. It's cool. And then I can go back and hear me saying that I'm going to change the face of education, and I'm doing it, it'd be cool. Yeah. All right. Wow, that was a lot of. We went through a lot. I didn't even talk about you're Haitian, how that's part of your life. How is it? Like how's Haiti showing up in your world right now? Kind of
It
I'm curious.
honestly it doesn't show up in my world. So yeah, my background is Haitian. I was born here. My mother was born here
Mm-hmm.
too, right? So I'm not like first generation Haitian American. My father was born in Haiti. I think I have to consciously add it add it to my life, right?
Interesting.
Um, because my husband's not Haitian. He's from Trinidad. So I feel like, and he's like really from Trinidad. So I feel like that culture is like what like is dominant in my household.
Yeah.
Um, so I try to add it, maybe by like foods or like trying to speak the language, which I sound horrible. But I try my best. I
Yeah.
understand it.
Yeah.
And like, my grandfather's still alive. He's still here.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's, he keeps it alive in my life for me with
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for joining this podcast, and I want to say publicly that I thank you for being so supportive of me for a very long time. This is
You're
not just
welcome.
right now. I remember one of the biggest memories I remember, and I don't know if you can remember this, but when I think of Kathleen, the first thing that comes to mind is this thought. We were going to Lilac Ball,
Uh-huh.
prep thing, and we were in the brownstone, and I was in the kitchen, and I had my tie, and I was like playing with my tie, and then I don't know, Kathleen like came and she like fixed my tie, and she's like, "You looking crazy." It's like fixed my tie, and I was like, Kathleen cares about me, like really cares. I'll never forget that. There's something about that small moment. I was like, that she's a good one. Like, she cares, and so I thank you for literally and metaphorically fixing my tie for the past, several years.
Several years. You're welcome.
Yes. All right. People who are out here, I hope you were inspired by Kathleen's hustle. It's a strange time, but we're going to stay safe. Hope you stay safe. I hope you stay brave. And I'll see you the next time. See you next time. See you the next time. See you next time. I don't know. All right. Bye.